What's up, fellow nerds? It's Dr. Paul with a mail call. This one's pretty special. I didn't do an unboxing. I did that off camera, but I did want to share this book with y'all. This is an important World War II Golden Age book. This is Exciting Comics number 36. This is published by Nidor, and obviously it was in the height of the war. So Nidor did superhero comics, but generally adventure comics. They did a few anthology series like Exciting, and then a few of the heroes that starred in Exciting and Thrilling Comics was another one they published. Got their own books eventually. The Black Terror is one of those stars. So this is a Schomburg cover. It's a Black Terror cover, obviously, and it's a World War II cover depicting the Japanese that we were fighting during World War II, depicting them as essentially kind of subhuman. These are some very tanned Japanese fellows with the stereotypical teeth and eyes and everything that obviously today, well, should have been offensive then, I guess, but we were at war. And we were recovering from the Day of Infamy in, if you've ever visited Pearl Harbor, you know, obviously it had a big impact on our country's psyche, the attack that was perpetrated there. So at the time, this was obviously considered very patriotic. You see the red, white, and blue flag here, imploring people to buy war bonds and stamps. And notice too that this is a single staple book. So this is a World War II era book where paper rationing, metal rationing, you know, they were manufacturing pennies out of steel instead of copper, all to put essentially, you know, all of our resources toward the war effort. So despite this depiction, I think this is a great Schomburg cover. I think the Black Terror, and this is, I think, Timothy Terror, his sidekick, is a Golden Age superhero that was certainly different than what was being offered by Marvel and DC at the time, which of course were called Timely and National Comics. But what's great about this is there's a Black Terror story. This is similar to detective or action or you know, some of the other anthology books at the time, like All Winners. There's multiple stories here. So one of the things I find interesting about this is the first story is a Black Terror story. This actually is the first appearance of this nemesis of the Black Terror. So this is the first appearance book. I believe this fellow's name is the Torch, maybe? We'll see it at some point. He invented a torch. They're known as the Terror Twins. Yeah, the Torch. So this is his first appearance. Then the second story in the book is a story about American Eagle and his sidekick, Eaglet, not Eagly, for those of you that are enjoying Peacemaker, but Eaglet. And they're also fighting what sort of appear to be Japanese, but the insignia is not exactly the same as the Rising Sun, I don't think. Or maybe it's just colored poorly. So he's also a superhero in that he can fly. He has powers. The interior art does not quite live up to the Schomburg cover, unfortunately. but I think it was typical of a lot of comics at the time. And then it has several stories about sort of regular dudes who were heroic in the vein of Action Comics. So Crash Carter is just an air cadet. He has no superpowers, but he's obviously fighting the Nazis here. And it has, here's the centerfold. This book has a strong centerfold, a nice staple, no rust. It's a very nice book. I think we'll work on it a bit. It does have that water stain on the front. Then there's some text stories. There's another story of the Crime Crushers. The Crime Crushers also didn't have superpowers, I don't believe. I like this art style actually a bit better than, I think it's a bit more refined than the art in the Black Terror story, even though that was the lead story. Here's another text story. A story from General Arnold, the commanding general of the U.S. Army Forces. This is interesting. Ozzy the Seminole. I guess this is sort of an ad to get boys interested in signing up for the Army or the Air Force. Ozzy the Seminole joins the Air Corps and becomes a sharpshooter with his bow and arrow. Another text story, and then Sergeant Bill King, who was another non-superpowered hero in this anthology series with, recurring stories. I think that wraps up the book. So you used to get a lot for a dime. Condition-wise, this book is quite nice. Obviously, there's some bleed through on the ink. It's got this damage here, and it's got a little bit of damage along this edge in here. This bleed through, obviously this got wet and it bled through, so there's not a lot we can do about that. We could probably bleach it from the inside so it wouldn't be so distracting, but there's really not much we can do to recover from this here. There is a stain here which we might be able to work on. General soiling, so this could be cleaned. It could be wet cleaned, but obviously dry cleaned and wet cleaned. And then this is a very obvious flaw that I think we could address, and this is obviously a tide mark from where the book got wet, and it carried, basically you can see the paper here is whiter. It got wet from this side and it carried all of the impurities that were in the paper to here, and then as the water evaporated it left, just like chromatography, right? It left all the impurities there. So I think I probably will attempt a wet cleaning of this book, probably an overlay, probably both sides, and I won't do much else to this book. Dry clean, an overlay, wet clean. It doesn't even need much of a press. There's a couple pressable defects. This here edge is bent up and could be positioned, could be rolled down and positioned a little better. But outside of that, there's not much to do with this book. These pages obviously could be pressed a little bit, but there's not much to do with this book. It's, I think it's probably a 4 as it sits. We could improve it a bit, maybe stretch it to a 4.5 or a 5. It is a very rare book in terms of there's only 16 copies of this book in the census. It is from a publisher which did publish an entire stable of superhero books. This is from December 1944. So it's an important Golden Age book. Obviously not maybe as important to many as a DC or a Marvel book, but it was, Nidor was certainly one of the larger publishers in the Golden Age, published a lot of significant heroes. Schomburg did a lot of covers for them. So this is certainly a very desirable Golden Age book in a very acceptable condition here. And I think we can improve it a little bit. So I was really happy to add this to my PC. I hope you enjoyed a little walkthrough of this book and discussion of the work. If I do that work, I probably will do a video series on it. So if you want to leave a comment, let me know if you want to see that. That'd be great. And I want to wish everybody happy hunting and implore you to please take care of one another.